German language is very, very, very good in precisely describing states, describing a specific condition of something, describing technical details is very easy in German. In US, for example, the people are actually more dynamic. They move more within the country. They are more likely to switch places within their lives. While in Germany, we are very static in basically everything we do. If you compare the German language with the Spanish language, for example, in Spanish you have way more depth in describing emotions.
Class podcast by SundayPyjamas.
Anton, first of all, thank you for spending some time. I would say I was quite fascinated by your digital nomad lifestyle. So I'm very excited to discuss about, the operational side of a digital nomad lifestyle in the sense, what it is and how you think about things, how you go about, let's say, choosing locations, and how does the international financial system kind of enable you or maybe not let you do certain things when you are living your just normal life in a nomadic way. And apart from that, since you're in the crypto space, right, I think it would be fun to just discuss your perspective on where the space is going. We have seen certain ups and downs in the last couple of years. Like 2020 was a crazy time, so was 2021, and then 2022 kind of was very different than what we had anticipated. So we see like a big shift in where things are going. So I would love to get your thoughts on that as well. And apart from that, I learned that you are very good at connecting people with each other. So I would also like to learn how you ended up doing that. So we have a lot to unpack. We have a lot of stories to tell. But to get started, right, I think it would be really great if you could kind of go back maybe to your college days and kind of try to understand what were the influences during your college or maybe before that, or like what are the things were you thinking, what were the things you were reading at the time that kind of pushed you towards what you're doing right now.
When we go back to my college times, I mean, I did grow up in Berlin, in Germany, and during my college times, I was actually using most of my free time and all of my money to buy cards, to buy trading cards, which are called Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering. Do you know that game?
I am not aware.
Okay, so it's a card game where you have to buy the individual cards. It's a huge variety of cards are available. It's created by an US company, US based company, and it evolves around fantasy creatures like dragons and wizards, and you can have some spell cards and stuff like that. It's a game that you can play with two people, like with physical cards, or you can even play it with multiple gamers, like 5, 6, 7 players at one table. And I played that in college times a lot, like really a lot. Even when I had just like 1 free hour in between my school, I was going to some store where they actually had some relaxation area where I was playing with other people from the local neighborhood. And I did that again and again and again, and I started to know everybody in that little community, in that local Berlin area here. And after some time, I started going to tournaments. I started to become more competitive in playing that card game. And I started actually to trade a lot. Like in that game, when you have a new idea, like, oh, you want to gather, like, let's say goblins, like little creature cards, and you basically trade away all other cards to get more goblin cards. And while the individual cards, if you look them up online, they have prices, of course. You can buy them for different prices, and they go up and down because supply and demand are shifting every day. With playing that game and trading these card games, I actually got a very fine feel of the demand and supply and the price and how valuable people look at the different cards. So sometimes you could buy a card for like €2, and then somebody discovers you can use that card on a tournament level with a specific new strategy, and because new card comes out, and then all of the tournaments get won by this specific new strategy, and everybody suddenly wants to have that one card. So the demand goes through the roof, and the card price goes to €10, €20, €50, you know. So actually, sometimes you could make a 10x, 20x, 30x on these cards, you know. Like there were, and some of the cards were very, very overpriced, like very expensive. I had bought one card back then. It was a very simple card, like it costs one energy thing there, and you just draw three more cards with it. But it was in that game, it's like super rare and only got printed like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago or something. And I bought it for, I think, €150, and it went up to some 4 digits, you know, in price. So I do believe that now, with all the NFT hypes that we see, I sort of, once I got into it, I understood it very well because of this time in my past when I was trading the cards, you know.
Were you introduced to the card game by your friends and family, or is it just a part of the culture in Berlin where you grew up?
I did have one very, very good friend at that time. You know, we were actually going every week to some very nerdy event, some mathematic course, you know. We were going there every week, and at some point of time he was like, oh, I have this new card game thing here, and then he was like, oh, here I have some cards that I don't really need. Maybe I can give it to you for like €10 or something. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And then I started, and then I put more and more money into it, you know. And because I gathered a ton of cards, so over time during my college time, actually after college, I lived 2 years, more than 2 years, only from selling cards whenever I need to pay my rent.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did have, I did actually have, because I sold online, and I did send the cards to people in all over Europe. I did have more than 600 sales, you know, purely on one platform. And you get good recommendations always. And I had like a top tier profile as a seller of these
As a
cards.
seller, yeah. What is this platform?
The platform is called Magic Card Market, and back in these days it was just getting developed as a Berlin startup. I even know some of the founders, you know, and now it's like in all over Europe for basically every trading card game. It's the biggest platform.
Wow.
That's also how on the side I I was always looking at the startup and understanding how they grow, and it fascinated me because at that time, before the startup, you could always only use eBay, and eBay was actually very bad for buying and selling these cards. It was not made for all the small details of trading these cards, and this platform was perfectly had way lower fees, way better service, and you would get your cards if you buy at the right seller, like at me for example, you would get the cards very very fast. Like I was checking 2 times a day. I was checking my account if somebody bought, and then I would immediately run to the postal office, and
to send
sending
those
it away.
cards.
Yeah. I always put some additional cards that were not ordered as a gift into it, so that the people are happy when they open it, and that they actually give me
A
a
good rating.
very good yes, yes.
So, were your parents aware about this activity? Like, were they aware that, you are trading cards in school? Yeah. And what
Yeah,
did they
yeah,
make
they were.
make
And
of it?
in general, my parents are very supportive, but sometimes they were actually like not really understanding why I put so much money into it. Like I just had like hundreds and hundreds of euros I put into these small small cards. And they were like, is that really necessary? Like, why you already have like tons of cards? Why do you put more money into that? Like they're worthless. So
And what did they do?
yeah, I mean they were aware of that, but my father is actually in working in IT. He's analyzing systems and creating secure environments for private people and for businesses, especially small schedule businesses here in Germany. And my father was very, very early aware of Bitcoin, actually.
Hmm.
And he was the
Really?
first. Yeah, yeah, he was one of the
Wow.
first people to tell me about it. And reason behind it is, as I mentioned, he was doing the security for people. And back in the days, it became very popular that you send out malware through spam emails. Like you send out spam mails to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and some of the people will actually check the mail. They will open anything attached, any file attached to it. Then the file contains malware. The malware will often it will hide like for 1 or 2 or 3 days in your computer, and then it just starts encrypting all of your important data, and then it shuts down your computer, and when and it exchanges some of the important system files. So when you start your computer again, you only see one screen, which basically says something like, "Oh, we held your computer hostage, and you can only get free if you send this amount of Bitcoin to a specific wallet." Because Bitcoin at that time was the most easy and sort of anonymous payment system that criminals could use to actually get money from people without the police afterwards being able to tell where the money went. And so, due to that reason, my father got aware of Bitcoin, and my father was researching about it.
When, let's say, you and your dad had this discussion about Bitcoin, how did he explain you what was Bitcoin? And like, how did he do that? How did he kind of explain you what Bitcoin is?
Oh, he explained it a little bit to me, but back then it was like it. It's too sad, probably I would be very rich if my first reaction would have been different. But back then I was like, okay, it's digital money. Okay, you can send it to people and it's used for people making malware. Okay, and then I didn't look into Bitcoin for a couple of years. Yeah, then even later when I looked again into Bitcoin, I was like, oh, I should try getting some Bitcoin. And I had this bit of paper money, and I was like, okay, how can I get some Bitcoin with that? And downloading some of the like a Bitcoin wallet and downloading all the blockchain data. And then I tried to get my money into it, and it didn't work. And then I stopped, and then I did something else for another couple of years. Actually, until I really got into crypto, took me a very long time. So I'm actually one of the later people that started getting into crypto, because the first time when I tried to buy it and did not get immediately distracted by something else was actually through a centralized exchange. When a friend told me in 2020 about one centralized exchange where you can very easily get your hands on crypto, and I was like, yeah, that's interesting, and it's more interesting than stocks to me. Actually, due to the transaction fees on stocks, at least at that time, using a German bank, I would have paid $6.50 per transaction. So if you to buy and then later to sell, I would pay a total of 13 euros. Now, 13 euros, if you're new, like I was aware, okay, I'm new, I have not really any idea about stocks, and I will probably do some mistakes until I will make good trades. So the first money, I was very aware, will be only thrown out. And I was fine with that. But thing is, to actually make the first profits, I would need to make more than 13 euros of profits. So let's say I would want to buy a kebab with the profits, so that I have something in my hand for my profits, I would have to make a total of like 17 euros. Now, to make 17 euros of profits, I couldn't just invest with 50 euros, right? Unless I make like immense gains. So I would have need to put like 400 to 800 euros, then make a very good trade, and then get everything out in one transaction again to actually buy me a kebab from the profits. And I was like, wait a second, it seems a little bit unlikely in comparison to the risk that I'm just losing like 20 or 30 euros or everything. I don't know. So I mean, even in stocks, people have rug pulls, right? Like Wirecard, that was giant rug pull in the stocks, and it's not a single case. So then I compared it with crypto on a centralized exchange where you have transaction fees of cents. You can start with 30 euros, 40 euros, 50 euros. You just have to make a profit of 3 or 4 euros, and then you can actually buy a kebab from that, So the risk in crypto due to the transaction fees, at least in my head, was way lower than if I would actually start trading stocks. So that's how I decided during COVID. COVID just hit the pandemic, and so I had a little bit more time. And then I started with crypto, and since that day, every day I'm either trading or researching, connecting with crypto people, talking about crypto, writing about crypto.
Last time we briefly chatted about you working in sales for a painting company.
Yes, yes. I was when pandemic started. I, I was actually in my second week at at a new job. So I just started in a company selling oil paintings for other companies. So for hotels, for restaurants, for offices, for dental practices, for lawyers, anything, you name it, in the whole German region, also a little bit, sometimes Switzerland or Austria. And my boss at that time, he's one of the best salesmen that I know. So he was my sales mentor, and I learned a lot about not just about sales, but also about, of course, about paintings, about art, and about a lot of other topics like trademarks, trademark infringements, trademark rights, and anything related to that. Also about the psychological components of how you design a room.
Yeah, I was very fascinated to learn that there is like a big business in the oil painting market. What I'm trying to say, right, is that yes, whenever I go to, let's say, a good restaurant or a hotel or a five-star restaurant, I see these paintings. But because I'm maybe I don't have the eyes for it, but it never clicked me that someone has to make and sell these things. I just kind of assume that yes, the paintings are just there, right? So
Yeah.
when you mentioned that you worked in that industry, I just had so many questions in the sense, how does that market really operate? And you were mentioning, the psychology of designing a room and all those aspects of the business. Yeah, could you like maybe share more details as to how hotels decide what paintings to go for and how you guys used to help them out make like the right decision? Because art is very abstract. So how does that process work exactly?
Okay. So there's a couple of important things to keep in mind. Um, First of all, where you place the paintings and the general size of the paintings is often kind of given by the room, you know? Because if you enter a new room, you have what we call sight access. I think it would be called in English. Like, it's the line of sight where you immediately look when you enter a room. So if I'm entering from here, a room, a painting would have to be on the other side, on the other wall, because it's the first thing you see. So that's giving you the first impression. The paintings, they have to be matching in general with the surrounding. It's nothing that you will think about, but it's something if that's misplaced, people will recognize it. So the thing was, you said, how do people decide which paintings to put into a hotel or restaurant? Actually, you as a customer should have a good first impression, right?
Taste, you mean? I should have a taste for it.
If you go to a hotel, you go there one time, two times, three times, but the people working in the hotel, they look at the paintings every day, you know? So actually, they also should like the paintings, especially the owner, especially if the owner is working in that hotel, he should feel proud of the specific paintings in his hotel. That's an emotional thing. Now, we humans, we are very visual people. We can understand visual data more than 50,000 times faster than audible data, for example. When we talk, like my boss and me, when we talk with some owner of a hotel or something. We tell them just to say out loud the immediate reaction to a painting. And then we show them like 100 paintings, 200 paintings very fast, like just we show a painting and he says, or yes. And and then we show the next painting and so on. So we very quickly go through a lot of different paintings. Then we have like a few favorites, like out of 200 paintings, maybe we get like 15 favorites. And then with the favorites, we actually take the time. Okay, where could it, on which wall, on which place could it be placed? And, how does it look? How does it feel? How would it feel if the owner enters the room and stuff like that? And then you just try it. You listen to your own emotion and to your own inner sense of if it feels right for the room or not. It's a very emotional process, and you have just to be logically aware that it is an emotional process, and then it gets easy, because you just feel if it's right or not.
And when you're showing the paintings, right? How do you find these paintings and the artists? Like how does that process look? Are you in touch with a lot of artists who paint and send you things and sell you things?
Yeah. The thing is, the company is actually working for more than 28 years now, or 29 years now, and they work together with a lot of artists that are full-time dedicated to creating paintings, that actually are creating paintings for decades now, and that also know some of the like general rules, what style of paintings works good for offices, for hotels, for businesses and whatnot. Because you can't, like, usually in business rooms, you cannot put like a naked woman. You cannot put like very dark or very vile paintings or something like that, that doesn't work. It should be colorful. There should be no black or very little amount of black in the paintings. Yeah. So there are some like general guidelines for the artists. Aside from that, artists do love their freedom and also in creating the art. So working with artists is not an easy thing, because many artists, many artists put them. I don't mean this in any way like harmful, but many artists are very egocentric. Many artists think about themselves when they create something, and I mean, it doesn't work in any real industry that when you create something professionally, that you only think about yourself, right? If I would create food for other people, I don't think about myself, right? I think about if it tastes and works fine for the people that I create the food for. If you would create a software, you would think about the user, about the consumer, about the people that you sell the software later to, right? If they can make use of it, if they will understand it, you don't think about like, oh, I have to express my feelings in that software. And many artists are the other way around. They are like, oh, I have to express myself. But expressing themselves is not directly delivering the value to the buyer.
Do you think this is like the ancient conflict between an artist and an enterprise?
It often can be. It often can be. I mean, I find it completely fine if people create paintings all day and to express their feelings. But if your goal is to live out of the salary that you get for that, you have to a little bit adapt your mind to, okay, who's buying the painting? Why do they buy the painting? What do they use the painting for? And what value am I even creating with it? And And when it comes to business rooms, then what matters is in which sort of business room will the painting be? Let's say if I put a painting in an office next to a desk, and somebody will look every day on that painting, and let's say that somebody is a coder, like creating software. Now the artist's job is actually to create the best painting for this one individual working every day in that office, right? So it doesn't matter if the artist at the point of creation feels good or bad, or thinks about their I don't know, their father that they never really connected with, or their dead grandmother, that's not so important. Like this one guy who will sit for years or decades next to the painting. So if that person who sits next to the painting is actually a giant fan of Star Wars, you can create a painting of C3PO, and you create the painting in a very artistic way, bright colors, a good, nice fitting format for that office. And then you have something that the end consumer will be happy with every day, if they are a fan of Star Wars. And so we actually were always looking for artists that understand that it's not about themselves, but rather the room and the people in the room next to the painting later after the art was sold. So the artists that we worked with are very specific when it comes to this mindset in working, and
Very interesting.
they
Very fascinating.
and they understand this, so, and once they understand it, it's actually the best people to work with for decades.
Yeah, I don't think when people look at a painting, they think about all the things that go behind the scenes to make sure the painting is where it is. And since that day, I've been thinking that, yeah, even I keep on noticing paintings everywhere, but I never thought about it. Like, I understand someone made it, but I mean, I don't think I thought about the supply chain of the painting industry or how it works at all.
Okay, yeah.
And do you feel it's a very big industry in Europe, or is it very big globally?
It is a very big industry globally. It depends a lot still on the region. Like in some regions, people have and use way more paintings than in other regions, and it also depends on how people decorate housings in general. So in some areas, it's more usual to have like very big walls. And when you have very big walls with a lot of space, a lot of empty space, then it will automatically people more easily get to putting up paintings. And I mean, it's not a product like for everyone, and especially not for every business. Like in many offices, they just have some calendars on the wall, some stickers, some like random, looks chaotic. I think there has to be some thought process, which for many people takes years or decades. Some thought process that comes with success, that comes with the ability and habit of creating the environment and the results you want. And if you always create and form and shape your professional environment from year to year, at some point of time you will be like, oh, all of these calendars, we don't even set the timer, like it's still like 2 months from 2 months ago or something, right? Like when they don't switch the months, right? And then you see like nobody looks at the calendar even, right? It's so very very often in offices, and but some people, they are like they want to really feel the power of their success in their daily office environment. And these are basically our most common customers that we work with.
I see. That's very deep. So you are saying that people who feel deeply and who would want to be in a good state of mind while they are working in the office, and people who understand the importance of maintaining a certain feel to the space, they are the ones who are investing very heavily in buying good paintings.
Yes, yes. And
It's very fascinating.
one funny thing is, because of that, my boss actually told me when I started, he told me that usual customers of our company are 50 years and above. Usually they first get a lot of success and they are usually 50 years and above. And then he showed me like somebody who's 45 and he told me he's very young as a customer. At the beginning, I wasn't even so aware of that, but I didn't really take that like fully as a belief, because it was the one belief of my boss, and I didn't make it my belief. So at first, as I mentioned, COVID started. So when I started trying to sell and trying to find even like customers that are interested in this, I was trying several industries, very different industries, and different approaches. And even though my boss knew a couple of ways that worked, I was trying my own approaches, which might take more time, but in the end can bring new results, because my boss also wanted like to discover new ways in that company. So I tried multiple approaches, and like the sixth industry that I was actually going into was like a gold mine. The first five didn't work at all. Some crazy stuff. Like I tried actually, while all fitness gyms were closed, I tried to call like all fitness gyms and was like, oh yeah, I know you're closed. I know you have a big amount of costs, and I know you don't have customers, but do you want some expensive paintings for your gym? And people were like, no way. You're crazy. I don't even know if I exist next month. Why would I pay for paintings? I mean, even I'm very good at selling. So I even got like one guy who was like, yeah, maybe, yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, I could pay maybe some regular payment every month, and we want to redesign it anyways. But yeah, it didn't work out too well. So then I tried another industry, which was actually the insurance industry, because and that worked out really well, because in Germany we have a lot of insurance companies that are kind of smaller offices, maybe 1 to 12 people working in a single office. They can decide on their own, and they usually have a lot of wants. They want to feel very good. They have enough money. Even during COVID, they had enough money, and they sometimes have a long history of success, where they actually want to feel very, very well with their previous successes, where they want to have an office that they can be very proud of, and that where they proudly invite people into the office. And then I actually got a couple of customers that were 30 years and below. And my boss was amazed by that because before he never had such young customers in more than 28 years of this business like he got with me. And these were very, very interesting people, like young people that that already had a lot of work experience in their past, like with 18, 19 or something, they started to go into the working field. And then with like 25 or something, they get their own office, they get self-employed basically, and then they are like, okay, I want to achieve big things. I want to have a very high standard, and I want it visible for everybody. And this was like a new niche thing that we branched out to, and then we even started networking in that field, and so we actually then got new customers that knew the other new customers that we just got, you know. So, so we could call people and we could tell them like the last three people that bought our paintings, and they were like, oh, that guy. Yeah, I know him because he always gets these sales awards and everything. And yeah, he's very successful. And he has your paintings. Okay, come over. I take a look, So,
Very, very interesting. Very interesting.
yeah.
So, like people who want to be successful or are successful and who want it to be very visible. So, I would say that's like that's the cohort you were going after.
Yeah, exactly. And we were in a very small niche, like within the insurance industry, we were focused on one group of companies where actually the people usually know each other, where they sometimes go together on the same events. So they sometimes tell each other about new stuff, like if they get new paintings, and yeah, so with that method, we actually started networking in that field.
Could you share some insights about the professional culture in Berlin or Germany as a whole? Because I'm aware that the German language is very important if you really want to grow as a professional in Germany.
Oh yeah,
Although the English culture is growing now, but still like the default setting is still German, and for very good reasons. That in the early days, from what I read about the German language, uh, most of the engineering literature, or I would say any kind of literature, was developed in the German language, and so the language just grew and was known for a very long time as the intellectuals language. So like, I can understand why there is a lot of importance of the language on the culture, but that's all I know. So could you maybe like share some more insights about?
sure. So the German language is very, very, very good in precisely describing states and like describing a specific condition of something, describing technical details is very easy in Germany, in German, in the German language. So if you take this pen, you you could not describe this pen as detailed in English as you could describe it in German. We can even make up new words to describe things. We can basically take two words and put them together to one, or we can take three words and put them together with one. We can even do that with like six words and put them together to one, to more detailed describe one thing. As a result, we can put a ton of information into our descriptions. Usually, the sentences and words get very long in the process, So it's not like the most time efficient thing or something, but it is actually good to achieve a certain state of perfection, or that gets at least in that direction, you know? So I even know some people in UK that are working for automotive company, and they are all native English speakers. And when they want to discuss technical details, they often switch to German because it fits more their uh, their need to deliver information detailed and precisely to the other people.
Could you maybe give me an example about that pen, maybe? Like how to describe that pen in German to be very precise.
Yeah, like pen in German is Stift, and for example, this here is a Stiftkappe in German, or we could even put in the material like Plastikstiftkappe, and that's one word, Plastikstiftkappe, for example. And we could even go like more detailed if it's like a specific pen. Like for example, if you use it to write on foil, you would say Folienstift, or Folienstiftkappe would be this top thing then, you know, so that you wouldn't confuse it with the top things of other pens, you know. I think in general the German language forms a lot how we think. And if you compare it, for example, with English, we have less variety in verbs, and we are very adequate in describing a specific condition or state, something static. But in English, you get more dynamic just by the language. And I believe that in US, for example, the people are actually more dynamic. They move more within the country. They are more likely to switch places within their lives. While in Germany, we are very static in basically everything we do. If you compare the German language with the Spanish language, for example, in Spanish you have way more depth in describing emotions, you know, which is maybe one part of the reason why, in comparison, German people compared with like Spanish or Latin American people are very like cold, autistic people. Like they come across usually very autistic and cold in an international standard, you know. Like when I wasn't aware of that very deeply until I started traveling, and only then I saw like how sort of autistic we Germans often are, you know.
So is it that they are cold, they are perceived cold, or are you saying that because the language is very static and it's not as expressive as Spanish, for example, it shapes the psychology of people as well? Like there are two things: are they really cold, or it's just a perception of it?
I believe it's both. First of all, the perception is colder than we actually are, but also through time we actually get like colder because we behave like colder, and our focus in many things is more logical and less emotional. Like if you say something,
Yeah.
I will put more of my perception on the logical part than the emotional part. And in different cultures, it's different, you know. For example, sometimes people from Latin America, for example, they sometimes say stuff just to make you feel good, you know. Like if you meet a beautiful Latina woman and and you say, oh, you have really nice shoes, she might be like, if you like them, I can give them to you as a present. And it's a wonderful gesture, right? Like it's, oh, you like it, okay, I like you, and if you like my shoes, I'm willing to give it away for you because you are more important to me than my shoes.
I see. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the Latina woman actually wants to give you these shoes, because obviously her woman's shoes will not fit your feet. You know, like it wouldn't make any sense. And because of that, like logically, it wouldn't make any sense. While emotionally, it's a very beautiful thing of her to say. So the usual, and actually this happened to a friend of mine here, to a German friend. He got into this situation, and his reaction was, "Oh no, you keep your shoes. They fit you much better." Like he went defensive because he took it so logical.
Literally.
He's like, oh, that Latina, she wants to give me her shoes now. What do I want with the women's shoes? You know, he almost starts panicking in his head, you know, because he's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. And yeah, and it doesn't make sense because he only, like, 90 or 95% of his perception is on this logical part, while he while he thinks about that, he doesn't even get the emotional component, that it's just a nice gesture of her, and that in no way anybody would expect him to take away her shoes, you know.
What you are describing is very interesting, because you are kind of saying that because the language. So would you say because the language does not have the tools to express these emotions, people don't know how to express, not because they don't want to express, but because the language does not let them to. Is that a fair thing to say? What do you think?
If that would be the case, you would get automatically very different just by learning a second language, and that's not immediately the case. It helps. I do believe it helps, and it's an important part, but I think it's by far not everything, and it's very deeply embedded into our culture that we always perceive everything from a logical angle, and also the habits that we have, you know. In Germany, if we meet new people, the usual thing that is important in the meet and greet is the handshake, you know. You reach out with the hand and you shake the hand. And if we meet in person someday and we make a good handshake, I will already feel like very happy and connected. And, you know, and we don't have to go to any Latinas for that. We can compare to French people now, you know, very nearby. And when two new people will meet, they will be like, kiss left, kiss right, kiss left, you know. It's completely normal in their culture. And if a German guy would go to a German woman and they would do the same at, like, the first meeting, here we would think like, oh, that guy is basically cheating on his wife, you know. It's like, for us Germans, it's like immediately before cheating on your wife, or maybe already cheating on your wife, you know, depending on who you ask on that. Like it's so hugely different, and in France it's like the most normal thing to do, you know.
But when do you think you became aware of all of this? Because you were in Berlin, let's say when you were growing up. Did you have to like go outside Berlin to realize this and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is not the same?
So there were multiple steps to that. First cultural shock that I had was, I think around 2005, 6 or something, 2006 maybe. I was going to China for 2 weeks. And I mean, China's a completely different world. Like, completely different. And there I realized how different it actually can be depending on where you are. I mean, when I was younger, I always traveled a lot with my parents, with my family, but these travels were, I mean, they were family travels, so we usually stayed together as a family. We did stuff as a family. So you don't really go deep into the other cultures, you know? And also we do only have very short periods of time to visit other countries because of the school, you know? You have maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but usually not more to discover other places. So yeah, the China where I went, that trip was really at least showing me that there is a door to be opened and that there is another world behind, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then it took me a very, very more long time to get to know more of different cultures. And I believe one thing that really shifted my view and actually got me deeply interested was two things happening at the same time. One thing was one of my best friends actually came after 4 years of traveling through the whole world. He came back to Germany, to Berlin, and he was like at some point of time he was calling me like, oh, I got thrown out of one place, and can I stay at your place? And then after work I picked him up, and he stayed at my place for like roughly 1 year then. And so we had a lot of time to talk about his travels and stuff. And through his perspective, I understood more and more of how much there is to discover and how very like isolated in my perspective I am while staying in Germany. And I did always have this one theory of actually, I don't know how to call that in English, like the frogs when they are babies, you know? How do you call that? These, when they can only swim and they don't have legs yet?
Oh, tadpoles when they're just
Yeah,
wiggling in water.
yeah, exactly. The tadpole. So, I believe most human are like tadpoles. Like, we grow up and and at first we can only swim a little bit in the area where we are born. And at some point of time, we actually grow legs. So we actually grow the ability to move. And while the world is gigantic and one single lake whereas the tadpole you get born is very, very small compared to the whole world. So now the thing is, a frog, once you become a frog, you usually still only jump around that one lake. And even if you go to a different lake, you might go back to your own lake and you stay there until you die. And we humans, we do the same thing for not any real reason, right? Like, if you would start playing a game and you start in some village, you would go and explore the game, right? You wouldn't be just like, oh, there's 3 people in the village. I can talk with each of them, and once I talked with all 3, I can talk with them again. And then they say in games, if you talk to people, they usually say the same stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And in real world, it's the same thing. like if you know a person for like 10 years, 20 years, they say the same stuff, right? Like, and you still go to them like every day, and they say the same stuff, you say the same stuff, and it's like on repeat. and yeah, so I think we people, we are a little bit like deadpols often, and I'm like the biggest deadpool of all. Like I lived for 30 years in 3 different locations that were all within 15 kilometers of where I was born. Like I didn't move any further for more than like 2 or 3 weeks. Like that was the most time when I would go away from that place. So yeah, so I developed the wish to actually change that, and then I started playing Axie Infinity. And Axie Infinity, there's for the people who don't know, it's basically an NFT. They call it a play to earn NFT game, which is just the terminology of, it's like Pokemon, and you have to pay for the Pokemons. It costs a ton of money back then, especially, and you can rent out your account to other people so they play for you, and then you get some rewards, monetary rewards, or equal to monetary, and you can split the rewards. Like a portion of that is for the player, and a portion of that is for you as the owner. So I started to play that in a gaming guild that I created with a lot of people from the Philippines. And now, I told you I have a background of this trading card game, which is sort of very similar in the strategy of Axie Infinity. And I did play that at the tournament level, So my standard on playing games like that is very high. Now, giving out these accounts to other people and creating a gaming guild where we all fought under one name and one logo, as like one family, where I wanted the other people to actually learn more about the strategy. And in the beginning, most of these people in the Philippines, they were just like pressing buttons, and they didn't even think deeply about it, because they were not aware of the strategic options that you have in playing that game, and in what difference it makes if you play it this way or that way. And so I started teaching them in streams, and we were communicating every day with all the peoples in with all the people in our gaming guild, and we were not just talking about the game, a lot, but not only. We also talked about lots of other stuff in life, and perspective on life, and they told me a lot about their culture, about their food, about lots of stuff that was, for me, sounded very alien-ish. Like, do you know balut?
No, I'm not aware.
Okay, balut is a Philippine food specialty, which is basically an egg where a little baby chicken is inside, and you cook it with the baby chicken inside, and then you open it, and you eat the baby chicken inside, And for me as a German, this sounded extremely strange. And I saw pictures, and I was like, no way I will ever eat that, And there was lots of other stuff that they told me about, and that so I started to understand more, at least about how big the difference in perspective and everyday life is between us and here in Germany and the Philippines. Um, I mean, at that time there was even happening a horrible disaster, like major floodings, where um, some of the people that we played with were suddenly like not reachable for weeks, you know. And I was trying to find out if they are fine, if their family is fine, and what exactly happened. So um, a lot of these people, they knew each other and in this gaming guild, and they were also knowing other people in the same areas, and so it was possible to investigate, like if they are fine, and to reach somebody else, and then understand, oh, they don't have any electricity in that area, and they don't have any internet connection, so they can't send messages out, and that's why they are unreachable, but maybe the people are fine, and stuff like that. And I started to understand that in the Philippines, it's actually a common thing that some areas have giant disasters, and then they are unreachable for the outside world for weeks, often, sometimes months, and then they build up the infrastructure again, and it's fine, and then they rebuild the houses, and they live on with their lives, you know. And yeah, like here in Germany, we can't imagine that, you know. But it's because it's completely different life, you know. Like our houses here are usually built for centuries, you know. And in the Philippines, it's some pieces of wood often, you know. It's just some pieces of wood, and it doesn't rain into it, and then it's fine, and it's a house, and it doesn't cost so much, and you can sort of more easily rebuild it, you know, if it gets destroyed. Yeah, but I was getting very, very curious about that, and that's actually one of the major reasons why later I I actually went to the Philippines. I met a lot of the people from my gaming guild, even though we didn't game any longer because Axie Infinity went downhill. But I'm still in contact with lots of these people, and so we met in person, and they told me a lot, and teach me a lot about their culture, about their language, about their food. I tried all of the Filipino food specialties. It's very, very delicious. They have so many delicious food specialties, and very, very different from the Germans one. I even tried the balut. I don't know, like 20 times or something. Like I really started loving it. Actually.
So was this like the beginning of your digital nomad life, or this was before that?
No, it was like traveling to the Philippines was later, after I already started my digital nomad lifestyle. But the decision to go to the Philippines was actually one of the major reasons why I started the digital nomad lifestyle. Even though in the beginning, when I was first only going to Portugal, which is very, very nearby of Germany, and I mean, in Portugal, the food is very similar in many ways, at least to the German ones, and the people and culture is still sort of similar, you know. Like it's a little bit different, but it's not so alien-ish like going to different continent. And in when I went to Portugal, it was still in the pandemic, and it was for my mental health. It was very, very good because before I was always in Berlin, where people are like scared like shit for all of the COVID reasons, and where it's so densely and even economically, you have like lockdowns, and suddenly all of the businesses can't get any money, and people lose their jobs and everything. And going to Portugal, I was first in some very, very small village. I basically only met like every other day one person in the supermarket, and that was it. I was just staying at my apartment. I was in the first 3 weeks I was there together with a friend from Germany, and yeah, so we were basically just in the apartment or at the beach, um, and we were just relaxing, enjoying life, doing a lot of stuff within crypto. At that time, we were still like playing Axie Infinity all day, every day, also. And but back then, I already had the decision that someday I'm going to the Philippines, and took me another like 6 months until I actually went there.
And then I think you're planning to go more countries in 2023.
Oh yeah. I will go next to Vietnam, probably in May or something. And then from Vietnam, I want to explore some of the nearby Asian countries, like maybe Laos, maybe Thailand, and I will see which other countries. So yeah, I think Asia is very interesting, and so far I've only been to China and to the Philippines within Asia, and I think there's a lot of differences in the culture in the different countries in Asia, and I want to explore that. I also want to connect with a lot of crypto related people in that field.
I would also recommend you, maybe in the future, right? You should totally visit India as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think visiting India will be also a huge cultural shock, and will be probably very, very interesting.
I would say it would be multiple cultural shocks over and over again, because all the parts of India are very diverse. Like you can say, India is a collection of more than 20 to 30 subcultures, like dominant subcultures.
Well, yeah, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And you also have a ton of different languages, right?
We have a lot of languages, a lot of cuisine. So since you mentioned that you love to explore food, if you go from north to east to south to west to the center India, that's like extremely different cuisines across the country.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. And the Indian food, like, I mean, from Indian food, I basically only know the Indian food that they offer in Germany and in Indian restaurants. And I I don't know if that's like exactly like India, like some food in India.
I can share some amazing restaurants in Berlin to you because I have friends in Berlin, and I can also write down dishes that you can go and try, or I can actually ask them to join you, so that you can have a great.
Yeah,
That is
sure.
completely possible.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome. Like I really enjoy Indian food. Like I could eat like the some of these peanut sauces or coconut sauces or or all the curry dishes. Like I could eat that all day. I do love spicy food, so I have to be careful now because for you, spicy is it's like I don't know if you just eat flames.
Yeah, we should actually arrange something like that. It would be fun. Don't you think so?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We should do that.
Yeah, you are open to it, right? I'll set it up then.
Yeah, yeah. uh, Okay. Yeah. Like I had some time where I was actually eating a lot of very, very spicy food. Right now I'm not so used to spicy food, honestly. Um, but I still eat more spicy than many German people, I believe. Um, yeah, but it's a thing with the training, right? If you always just eat potatoes, then your tolerance for spicy food goes down heavily. And if you start eating, like, for some time I ate like a spoonful of Tabasco every morning just to wake up.
Oh, really?
Basically, like, yeah, like instead of
That's
a
crazy.
coffee, I started like that. And yeah,
Just to train
I
yourself.
mean,
You did that to train yourself?
yeah, to train and to wake up, like, it's like it was like other people drink their coffee. I drank my spoonful of Tabasco, and
Very interesting.
if you do that for like 1 or 2 weeks, it it becomes like very, very normal, and it then tastes not even like spicy, like, I mean, Tabasco is on the spicy level very, very low. At one point of time, I actually ate here in Berlin some what we call currywurst, like a special kind of sausage,
I am aware about it, yes.
and um, they had one place here where you could eat it in 10 different levels of
Spice levels.
degrees of spiciness. Yeah, and I was actually eating, like, I started with the lowest ones and I got up through all of the 10 levels, and the most spicy one was almost 8 million Scoville, which is kind of very, very spicy. Um, yeah, you have, before you can actually eat that, you have to sign that you're taking your own responsibility for that, and and yeah, it was very spicy. I ate that together with a friend. We both went through all the levels, and afterwards it was kind of late in the evening, and afterwards, when he got home, he wanted to go to sleep, and he couldn't lie down because whenever he would lie down, his stomach started to hurt a lot. So he had to sit, and then he had to sleep while sitting because he couldn't lie down, you know, because it was so spicy still in his stomach. Like, that was, yeah, that was really some experience, but we trained for that before we did that, and actually they did put photos of us on the walls of the restaurant. Yeah, because they do that with everybody who passes all 10 levels.
Or it was like a food challenge.
Yes, yes,
Well, this was fun. This was a lot of fun talking to you. It was very nice. It was very
it
warm,
is. It
very
is.
comfortable. It was very nice.
Yeah, it was very, very nice. And I'm looking forward um, to see this uploaded, and to hear like feedback from the audience on that. And if there are like lots of other questions or directions that maybe your audience wants to take a deeper dive into, maybe we can do a second part another time.
How was it? How was it like for you to answer all the questions and just have a just like and your experience on the podcast today?
Very nice, very nice. I think time just flew by. It's very like flowy in the conversation. I really enjoyed this.